that file only and then referring to the tender document to make the changes that are required. Is that right, Amani and Andrew? Is that your understanding of what we should be doing?
Correct.
Yeah. So what I'm concerned about is too much going back to previous contract drawings, whether it's the same job or a redrawn job, going back to it or taking information from previous contract jobs is going to result in conflict with, well, maybe with the master just in itself, because we've been seeing that with sort of duplicate layers and some issues happening that way. But more particularly, the previous contract job may have been done on a master that is no longer relevant or correct. So if you copy stuff from that, it may be, it's hard to be sure that it's going to be the right thing. And if we're doing that for efficiency, I understand that you need to get things done, but I think my concern and the reason that I wanted to have this discussion is that it's leading to more problems on our end when we try and fix those issues. So I think what I'm hearing, I think, is that we need to reset the process so that we confirm that when you start a new contract drawing, you use the master file and the tender document only. And now sometimes there are things missing in the master. I understand that. Andrew has been working on a new reference file, an updated reference file, which is looking really good at this stage. And we will send that to you when we have it. And if you need extra information or there is something missing in the master, then you go to that file to get it. But what I'm thinking at the moment is perhaps, I mean, does everyone have their own reference files, or does each draftsperson reference separate files? Do you keep like old files on your own machines so that you've got a resource to check? Does that happen?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. People keep their own reference files on their own machines.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's a concern to me, because I think that will lead to issues. What we're trying to do in head office is try and, I mean, it's an ongoing process and it is difficult, but we're trying to centralize the resources so that there is only one place that you can go to get the information you need, and we test that and make sure it's going to work. So I think we might need to try and have a similar system work for Mitech as well. Is that okay? So from what I've said, if you work that way instead, work that way compared to how you work now, if you take the master file, look at the tender document and draw the file from scratch from that, is that going to slow you? How is that going to impact the way you work? Will it make you go much slower than you go now?
Ủa, chỉ là nói về cái job redraw thôi đúng không?
Sorry, wait a second.
Sorry, the question is,
Just a minute.
with what I've said.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, Di.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yep.
Chỉ cần mình nếu mà không copy như vậy mình làm chậm lại có gì xảy ra để nói với nó, chỉ cần có cái cho mọi người đang mất thôi, thì là có bây giờ thì nếu mà mọi người Là do lúc đầu mình cũng không biết được.
Bây giờ mình cần sử dụng một cái trên chung.
Bây giờ mình sẽ làm cái phép làm cho mình nhớ. Bây giờ mỗi người nên có một phép chung ra.
Hi team.
Yep.
Because the problem is that's the way. Because the team member use their own reference files. So how about if we use the mutual reference online, and it makes easier to apply for the new contract?
Sorry, so you think that well, we will give you the reference file and is that what you mean? It will be on. You wanted to have it online.
I mean, why don't we use the online reference file?
Yes.
So, sorry, Andrew.
You're on mute, Andrew.
Turn off.
Sorry about that. So the new reference file hopefully will be released at some point next week. So I've nearly completed it. I'm just now currently going through rebuilding all the joinery to be completed. And it will be in sort an online version of a reference file. So what it'll be, the reference file will be located in a location where it'll be accessible to masters production in here and MyTech as well. Everyone will have a version of the reference file, but it will be a version that you cannot edit. You will not be able to edit any other items within the reference file.
Okay.
What will happen is if the masters team, myself or Andrew McCabe, need to make any modifications to the reference file, and we do a change to the reference file, your reference file and everyone else's reference file will automatically update. So it's all hot linked like the masters are. So it'll prompt you to make an update. The next time you open up the reference file, it'll prompt you to do an update. And once you hit update, the reference file will update with any changes that we have made to the reference file. So any additional notes, any additional objects, windows, or whatever it is, you will always have, apologies, you will always have the most up-to-date information. This reference file will also be the same reference file that masters work off. So you will have the most up-to-date information. So you will not need to use any old jobs to grab objects or cows or anything, because I've rebuilt everything in this to be for solely for 25 onwards. So you're not going to need to grab anything from the old jobs, because all the old jobs, all the objects, even the even the joinery on floor plan for 8 homes, the floor plan joinery that we use on the floor plan uses some objects, and these objects from the legacy library and 18, and some of them are from 5th ArchiCAD 17. So I've been slowly rebuilding these objects. I've deleted them and I'm rebuilding everything in ArchiCAD 25. So when you come to work on a 25 master and you need to, for example, use a change the laundry trough to an LB1 or a broom BR1 cabinet, you won't be using from an old master. You'll grab it from the reference file because it's been rebuilt and it's shown as an ArchiCAD 25 object. Because if you were to grab it from an old one, you will get, like Tim says, you'll get some glitches, or it'll come up as a missing object. So you'll end up adding ArchiCAD 18 and it'll make multiple layers, and it'll just create a whole list of problems. Probably the only thing
that's what's been happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew. Go on.
So the only thing you will probably only need to use the old files for, you won't need to use the CAD file. If anything, you can use it just to reference notations that you've put on it, if that, or if you're looking for a change that you made and you can't recall what the change looks like, you can use it for reference. But I would refrain from copying So any structural changes that you've made previously, so any options that you've done, particularly options. So let's say we've got a job in particular that we had today where it was a where we did a guest bedroom option to the ground floor. And it was one of the jobs we were redrawing in version 3 instead of version 2 or version 1. What had happened is it seems that the drafter had copied the structural items and the structural changes from the version 1 job that they previously drew, just to save time, so not to redraw it, into the version 3 master, without realizing that, without checking things, because it's the version 3 masters have all been tweaked. Room sizes have changed to allow the wall-on-wall to work. What happened is the staircase no longer worked. The entryway size had changed. So what actually needs to happen is, if you've got a structural change, you need to actually do them from scratch in the version 3 master, unfortunately, because room sizes have changed. So I believe Tim's already worked on these the new masters and some of these options for them, for it to work. So there should be a brochure plan that you can work off, but you can't copy any structural changes or structural objects from an old master like we used to. So in the past, you were able to copy them across from old jobs. That was fine. But in the version 3, unfortunately, that's no longer an option because of the structural changes that have happened to the masters.
Can I just say also that with the version 3 is only double-story homes. They're in single stories are all version 1 or version 2. So version 2 was DNA 1. So there are a series of updates, and hopefully that's what's being sold. But there might be some cases where you have to go to an earlier version, but usually you would use version 2 in the single story, but you'd have to look at the tender document. But even though it would be less serious to copy something from an old job on a single story, I would still prefer that we tried to work with the master and the tender document and the reference file instead of using old contract drawings, because things can still change. And even when they don't, there's some of the masters are a bit broken and they cause problems. You know, we would like to replace them and make them all better, but it just takes a long time. Unfortunately, some of our files are just the way they are. So the less we rely on them and the less we keep making the same errors because we keep using the same old files, then the better off we will be. Now, if this means that you are slower and you can't get the drawings out as quickly, then let's talk about that, and we'll work on that, and we'll do everything we can to make it as efficient as possible for you. But if you do this because it's faster for you, you have to realize that it doesn't necessarily make it faster overall, because it may be slower by the time it gets to us when things have to be fixed. So, and also it's just not a good practice to be relying too much on past work. We want to be relying on the masters and the reference file that's common and standard for everybody. The same way we've done with the details. We had a big problem with details. There were lots of old details, and Chris has done a lot of work on standardizing those. And Di, I know that Mr. Fook and Mr. Khan have done a lot of details work, putting them into the masters. So that's standard now. All we have made our details be the same across all the drawings, whereas before there were lots of different versions being used. And so we've mostly fixed that, and now we've got a similar issue with some of these other parts of the contract drawings that have been used too much. So I will work towards updating that process, I think. Andrew, do you think that file will be ready by next Thursday?
Yes, yeah. I'm actually making some very big strides now. It's pretty much just all I have left to do, just the 2D joinery, 3D joinery, and the shadow plans, and it'll be done. So it'll be done by next week Thursday.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll talk about this more in next Thursday's session, and we'll review this as an issue. I'll write up a document which will kind of expand on the points that I put in that email, Di, and so that everybody can see that, and we will introduce this reference file and talk about the way we would like people to work when they create that. Then once you've got a chance to see that, and the team can have a look at what it means for the way that you have been working, if it seems that that is going to cause issues for you because of methods that you've generated with the way you've been working using the old system, then let us know, and we'll see what we can do to make it easier for you. We want you to be able to produce things as quickly and easily as possible, but also with as few errors as possible, of course. So once you've seen that information come through, then let us know how you think it will affect you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, because you're the first, your team is essentially the first team that works on the master. You're getting the full effect of the master. So we actually rely on the feedback we get from your team to improve the master. So if there's any glitches or any items such as the facade clip-ons or options that they've set up that you're supposed to change the story levels or the renovation filter that does not work properly or is not lining up properly, we actually rely on your feedback to let myself and Tim know that there's a problem on a certain master where an option doesn't work properly or a facade isn't lining up properly or isn't correct properly, so that we can get that fixed, so we can get that organized to be repaired. Because by the time it comes to us, to my team, you guys have done all the structural changes. We try to discourage any structural changes, so we won't actually see that error popping up or any of those consistencies coming through. So when you guys are using the master how it should be, and if you guys see any errors or any inconsistencies or anything that's not working well, please send us an email with the feedback so we can review it and see what we can do.
Yeah, that I second that. I'm always happy to hear any comments on the way the masters are working for you. You're the people that need to use them. They're for you, really. And if there's something wrong with them, then I'd like to hear that. I don't hear a lot of direct feedback from you. And I mean, I have kind of hoped that that's because they're working well, but I'm now beginning to think that perhaps they're not working so well. It's just that you maybe don't want to tell me that something's wrong. But I would rather hear that there is an issue for you that I can work on to make better in the masters. And if there's something that, because I don't use them day to day the way you do, so I try and understand what will happen, but I need the feedback from the people who are actually using them every day to know what works and what doesn't. And just the fact that you have clearly been relying quite heavily on previous contract drawings is a concern to me. That indicates to me that we've got issues in the master that need to be improved. I can't make every master match every contract, but we're trying to make them as flexible and as user friendly as possible. So any suggestions or issues that you have, I'm happy to hear that feedback.
Anything, once I send through the new reference file, when you guys start using it, any information that that you find missing from the reference file, that you find that you need a copy from an old job, please let me know as soon as possible, and we will update the reference file straight away with the information that's missing. So that reference file will continually be updated with anything that you require in that reference file. We will add to it to prevent the need from opening any other old files to use.
Is that I think that covers what we wanted to cover today. Is there anything else? Do you have any other comments or concerns or questions for us?
They said I'm
No?
good. They said I'm good. Sorry.
Ví dụ như trong tender bây giờ không cho copy từ version cũ ra đúng không? Thì bây giờ tới cái tender đó thì bây giờ mình nghe lại hỏi cho chắc vấn đề đó đúng không? Thì ví dụ như là tender thì đổi như là bên 1 và bên 2 không phải giống như tender này nó hạn mà trong cái trước cũng có thì mình có quyền copy từ cái trước cũ và sau này nó còn nên lúc đó mình hỏi sau hơn
Đó người ta trả lời nó không có gì.
It's okay, team. Thank you for your information.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay. Sorry.
thank you for taking some with us today.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Thank you for that. We'll follow up in next week's session. And Di, I think we have a meeting with Tien on Wednesday, but we might we might revisit that because I think we've covered a lot of the issues that we wanted to talk about there. So we'll come back to that before Wednesday.
Okay, I will follow up my team and report to you about the process.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Okay, see you.
Yeah. Bye.